Hello, good morning. Can anybody hear me? Oh, hi, Samuel. Good morning. Hello, can you hear me? Samuel, are you able to hear me? Oh, he's connecting. Can you hear me, Samuel?
Yeah, I can hear you, but okay. What is it? This is Zoom only, and what am I supposed to do? I know what I'm supposed to do. She is also presenting. I'm also presenting. And let's see how it goes. Can you hear me? I can't even hear myself.
Who is manning the LSA conference Zoom? Can they at least unmute?
Just talking shit. Okay.
Okay, we're just I see Rachel. I
Can you hear
see
myself?
Rachel is there. Okay, we're going to start. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm not sure who is managing the LSA conference Zoom. At least they should unmute and turn off the video so we can see people on the floor. But oh, now Samuel is gone. Oh, okay. Rachel, I see you signed in. Yeah, I see some of the presenters like on the list of participants. You need to sign in with the special link they sent to you so you can come on and you can be the panel. Okay, Rachel, you won't be able to present if you go that route. Samuel, are you ready to start?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this panel. The name of our panel is, one of the many panels on gender in popular culture, like the life and times of African women. This morning we have three presenters, and they will speak for 20 minutes each, and then we'll have like already lost 3 minutes. We'll have like 28 minutes Q&A. Please keep your eye on the chat as you present Samuel and other presenters. I'll let you know when you have 5 minutes more, and again let you know when you have 2 minutes more. So today our first presenter is Samuel Adejube. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, from the University of Ibadan. Dr. Adejube will be speaking on poetics and sacred and secular sounds, a review of Shola Allison's music. Please take it away, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. All right. Thank you so much. And then I'm not a doctor yet. I'm a doctoral student at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ibadan,
Okay.
where I also teach music. Um, I'll be talking on poetics of sacred and secular sounds, a review of Shola Allison's music. And Yes, let's go. Okay. Most times, people believe that the words sacred and secular are often conceived as diametrical opposite forces, and they are not supposed to be used together. Um, it's either you are in the sacred space or you're in the secular space. But when the two spaces are joined together, there seems to be an opposite forces that it's supposed not to be together. And there has been some conspicuous possibility of an open and fruitful relationship between the sacred and secular forces, secular relationship, especially in the musical compositions. And this sacred and secular possibility is, especially in musical composition, is where we'll see is what we see in the open space, whether on the street, whether in the church, whether among the people. As McCraden 2020 also challenges the polarized perception of secularity and sacredness in Australia in his work by arguing that both the sacred and the secular are not opposing forces. Rather, they are forces that are supposed to unite and to have a very fruitful relationship, and that is to meet together and to have its way, especially in the nationalism, or to embrace many types of sacredness, because sacredness sometimes is not just about religion, though religion is part of sacredness, but also in my credence trying to say that the nationalism, or when we look at nationalism, we could see sacredness in nationalism also. As we know that in Victor Turner's rituals elements, we could see ritual as something that is not just something that has to do with religion, but also but what is practiced daily. And if you wake up daily and you do your routine by maybe you pray daily and you have your exercise daily, that's a ritual. And that could be sacred to you. Also, you could look at the woman as being the sacred being, a sacred being in the sense that she goes through this monthly period every month, and that looks like ritualistic. So it could also be argued that even in the midst of secularity, in the midst of secularism, we have sacredness also in secularity. So, thus, sacred discourses ought to acknowledge and appreciate the principles and goals of secular voices, because in this work, I look at sacred can also be religion and can go beyond religion. But secularity in this work is not profanity. The profanity will look like the direct opposite of sacredness. But in this work, I look at how secularity can also be used as more mundane and not profanity and not something absurd. That's where I consider secularity. Yeah. All right. When I was submitting this abstract, I planned to use the functionalism theory, but why I was, and let me say this is also a work paper. Why I started writing about this, I discovered that using the gendering secularization theory would fit in more than functionalism theory. And secularization theory suggests that as society advances in modernity, as society advances in technology, as society advances in every form of advancement, religious belief, religious practices, religious institutions gradually wane in importance. That's what secularization theory says. And but the critic of this theory said that it lacks empirical support. And if you take this theory to Nigeria, for instance, we discover that as society advances, though the theories of religious belief should gradually wane in importance, but it seems as though they are growing together, because almost in every street in Lagos, you see two or three churches, and some you even see them in the same buildings. One church occupying the topmost floor, and another church occupying the ground floor, or you see them and then they use speakers to wage war against themselves. So the part of the story are saying that there are so many things that should be taken into consideration when you believe that society advances, religious belief also should wane in importance. And that's why Woodhead in 2008 argues that our understanding of secularization can be greatly enhanced by taking gender differences seriously. Why? Because this gendering secularization theory aims to broaden our understanding the complicated relationship between gender, religion, and secularization. This method, gendering secularization theory, enables a more nuanced investigation of our gender dynamics influences religious doctrine, religious ritual, religious institution, as well as how secularization process impact gender equality, women's empowerment, and a range of gender identity. Taking secularization theory alone, one of the critics also believe that women should also be taken into consideration in looking at how as society advances in the advancement, how religious belief also gradually waning in importance. And that's the reason why I decided to use the gendering secularization theory and not the functionalism theory I proposed initially. Now, let's go to Shola and listen. Let me try and play the song Ejorura, was the main song that pushed Shola Alice into the mainstream popular music and popular culture. Right, so that's Ejorura by Sholani Singh, and the song Ejorura is supposed to be a soundtrack for the movie Ejorura also, and Sholani Singh is a Nigerian female songwriter and singer who is quite vast in the use of Yoruba idiomatic expression in her musical compositions. And I decided to use Sholani Singh especially to look at this poetic of sacred and secular sounds because there's this debate whether Sholani Singh is a gospel musician or a secular musician. Because Sholani Singh can be found in both spaces, both the religion spaces and also the secular spaces. Now, let's consider the Alinsing's Poetic of Sacredness. Now, Alinsing's Poetic of Sacredness, this is why I look at sacredness as a multiple term in the sense that in sacredness, you will not just consider, especially looking at Sholani's poetic sound, you will not just consider Sholani's as in the Christian space or in the church space, but also someone who promotes the Yoruba traditional religion, which it's still a form of debate. No, you can actually, because one of the peculiarities of Sholanism that I noticed is that not of recent, in 90% of Sholanism music, it is difficult to find Jesus or Jesus used in a composition. Whether that was deliberate or not, you will see use a lot about Baba Allah Numi, bringing hope in turmoil, there will be light, Eledumare, Oluwa, and my Lord, Eledumare, I don't even know how to use that. So most of the time, you will see Shola using some generic name for God that can be used both in the Christian space and also in the traditional religion space. The question to ask about the sacredness or the poetic of sacredness in Shola music is, was it a deliberate syncretism approach by Shola, or was it a power dynamic or power play, or was it a case of looking for identity and fame? Because Shola started as being a singer-songwriter for Yoruba, Hollywood, Yoruba movies, and then soundtrack in Yoruba movies. So the question about the sacredness found in Shola music is that, number one, we see that there's a fusion of names, calling God names that can be found in both Christianity and the Yoruba traditional religion. And even the popular songs that talk about Mimo Solodumare, only the sinners cannot see your glory. One could look at that also as maybe it's a function of Sholani's background, musical background, as being somebody from the African Initiated Churches AIC, or maybe Shola Allyson was trying to just make sure that our audience are not just from the Christian circle, from someone who understands the Yoruba language and the richness in Yoruba language. So that's one of the way I'm looking at this poetic of sacredness in Shola Alyson's music. And that's why I drew an arrow here, that as Christianity here is moving into Yorubaness, and Yorubaness, a word that just come from myself, music, fusing into Christianity. So there's a thin line that sometimes you won't want to, you want to ask yourself, should we call Shola Allyson a gospel musician, or maybe it doesn't even matter? As long as the music is paving way for, and then making his audience to patronize her. So let me go to Alyson's Poetic of Secularism. Like I said earlier, secularism in Alyson's performance is not about profanity, but about what's called the canon, in the sense that Shola Allyson also look at singing about other issues that's going on in the country, especially about humanity, about social interaction, about love. The music that I played earlier, Ifebi Ejoro, it's a song that depicts the Yoruba philosophy about love and the practice of loving one another in Yoruba culture and environment. Then we look at it that the Yoruba, in the Yoruba world, the word love, love is something that is peculiar with the communal living of the Yoruba. Because Yoruba believe that that's to say that though a woman or a mother might give birth to a child, but when it comes to training the child has to do with the environment, everybody coming together to train up the child. So Shola did not just limit herself with just the sacredness, but also to think about the environment, what is happening around her. And for this gendering secularization theory that I used, you could discover that Shola also decided to make herself an advocate of gender equality in a song Obirinimi. As Samuel and Adejube 2017 also said that Obirinimi chorus encapsulates the motive created by Allyson, which is to attest to humanity to treat the woman with self-respect and dignity. So in Obirinimi Mokwelola, Shola Allyson tried to speak to the respecting the woman, respecting and having dignity for the woman. And if you looked at the song, because of time, I won't be able to play the song. You discover that the text in the song talks about how the society should treat the woman with respect, how the society should look at the woman as, and we can also trace it a little to the sacredness of the woman also, and to look at how the woman give birth, the 9 months of pregnancy that a woman goes through, the giving birth. And like I started earlier, even the monthly flow of the woman can also be regarded as the sacredness of the woman. So Shola Allyson decided to make herself an advocate of gender and then gender equality. Now this is now the argument in this work. Is Allyson a gospel singer or gospel writer, or an ingenious, a creative woman who navigates both the sacred and the secular spaces musically and needs no appellation? Now I'm trying to say that Shola Allyson demonstrates herself not only as a creative female artist, but also as a music crusader in bridging the secular and the sacred, particularly in the cultural sphere. So the question now is not just about to give an appellation. I think the question that musicology try to argue sometimes to say what exactly is gospel music. But my argument in this work is to look at not just sacred and secular, trying to do a dichotomy of sacred and secular, but to look at the function, the work itself, how the work contributes to the environment, or how the work contributes to the growth of the environment, or the development of the environment. And like Shola Allyson is doing, as being a woman, she's not just contributing to okay, I'm trying to look at the charts. Okay, she's not just contributing to the sacred space, but also the secular. And that's my argument. In the bid to conclude, which I asked, is there a conclusion? In addressing the creative artistic work of Shola Alison, this work is arguing, not as argue, for a radical move beyond mere religious platitudes and beyond merely secular discourses. It is arguing for a dynamic dialogue that permeates the sacred and secular, presenting Shola Alison as an agency of judging sacred and secular, seeing women as major stakeholders in both the sacred and the secular institution. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so very much, Samuel. That was really intriguing. We can't wait until when we can have discussion with you. Please, if you have any questions and answers, feel free to post them in the box, Q&A box, and we'll address them after all the presentations. So our second presentation, Rachel, is 20 minutes, okay? Our second presentation is from Rachel Habry, Dr. Rachel Habry, and she will be speaking on counter-genealogy of popular culture, retracting Algerian Rai through women musicians. Please take it away, Doctor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, is it all good? Yes, perfect. Okay, so yes, like Professor Opara said, I will be presenting my paper, Counter-Genealogy of Popular Culture, Retracing Algerian Rai through Women Musicians. So just let me introduce myself quickly first and foremost. I'm a master's student at the Institute of Islamic Studies at McGill University. And yes, this will be my presentation. You can ask any questions or have any inquiries about my presentation, paper, or research. Feel free to email me directly. So first, let me explain. There we go. Where my research exists. So it is interdisciplinary and consists of the study of music, study of relational culture or ethnography, the study of gender power structures, women, queerness, non-normative and alternative forms and ways of being, and finally, art history as music is art. I also include a study of visual culture of Rai, the discipline of art history. So overall, my argument is that Rai is a space of knowledge production conducive to feminist dialogue. In my study of Rai through women, I unravel the infinite ways of understanding Algerian society and culture. So I hope to offer knowledge and methods that are planted into different non-Algerian contexts as well. So I have tried to make this presentation accessible and easy to follow for anyone and everyone. So these are a list of key concepts that I will bring up today. And I will explain these concepts throughout, beginning with Rai. So Rai is a musical genre that began in the early 1900s in the Western Algerian city of Oran. It's a coastal city of Algeria. So the origins of the music are always disputed at once, so I won't go too far into how the genre began. What really matters is its essence. So Rai is a musical mode of resistance, primarily because of its lyrical contents. First, Rai was used as opposition to French colonialism to Algeria's independence in 1962. Then Rai was in conversation with the creation of a nation state that had never existed prior, and this is post-colonial context. So Rai played with many different overlapping power structures. There was a patriarchy, Western imperialism, the post-colonial socioeconomic context, state institutions, there was the army, education, and the context of Arab nationalism during the Cold War. Arab nationalism coming from other Arab nations, such as Egypt and East. So the lyrical contents of Rai songs included vulgar language, stories of sex, love, partying, freedom, release. In the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, religious fundamentalism triggered a civil war and ruptured Algerian society as a whole. So religious extremists hindered the production of Rai culture. Nightlife spaces and spaces of celebration became almost non-existent. And if they did exist, they remained underground, extremely unsafe. So Algerian music producers and Rai artists were threatened at the time, and there were even instances of assassinations of these cultural producers. So during this time of civil war and insecurity in Algeria, Rai traveled. So it leaves the context of the Algerian Civil War to find homes in the diaspora, notably in France, home to the largest Algerian diaspora, where Rai already existed at the time. So Rai paralleled with hip culture that was also on the rise at the time in France and worked alongside the social movements of Algerian other Maghreb diasporic communities. Both genres of Rai and hip hop shared many similarities from their lyrical contents to the ways that culture derived from the music. So from the 1980s, Rai also crosses the Atlantic Ocean, notably to the Francophone province of Canada, Quebec. Rai artists are featured in Montreal's World Music Festivals, and due to their ability to gather huge audiences, mostly comprised of North African immigrants, Rai musicians are given stages to perform and are documented in Francophone news outlets. So this wave of Rai reaching Quebec correlated with Algerian immigration to Quebec. So here I try to show that music displays that through movement, mobility, and displacement, coupled with the difficulty of return to homeland, the region of migrants creates a spatial and temporal discontinuity where culture with which the migrant is familiar no longer exists, even if in the place that they left. So there's a collapse here of space and time, once known to the music listener. Practice for once popular culture now becomes subcultural practices as they are decontextualized and dislocated and lead to alternative forms of solidarity and yearning for a sense of belonging through music. So this is where I emphasize the concept of queerness through non-conforming spatial and temporal boundaries. There are new forms of embodiment that arise. We start to question, how does music live in Algerians in diaspora? How does music capture stories of displacement, nostalgia, love for a country and for people, overall eccentric and non-normative modes of being? So these are all the questions that Rai music attempts to answer. So the etymology of the word Rai displays the truth and storytelling nature of the genre. So Rai means opinion, it means to see, it means free will, thought, and judgment. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a vessel to express opposition. So it self-consciously runs counter to accepted artistic and social norms, and it brings up themes of individuality, freedom, and liberation through its lyrics, and also through the movement that it triggers in the body. So it uses a variety of instruments, adapting with time and resources and the evolution of music. In its beginnings, Rai was performed at carnivals, festivals, and local markets. It had a folkloric nature, and it also evolved alongside urbanization in Algeria. So as cities became more urban, Rai was increasingly performed at cabarets and brothels and started becoming associated to sex work, thus associated to moral corruption and dissidence. So Rai tells these stories of social dissidence. The content of lyrics reveal the time of Rai in different spaces. Share that image pictured here on the slide. Began her singing at carnivals and festivals. She played with Rai's dynamic rhythmic beats that were meant to make people want to dance and trigger movement in and of the body and offer an optimistic release through sound. Ya Rai, a call for this release, expression, and inspiration symbolizes a ritual in performance, one where each individual experiences the music through their own individual bodies. As it entailed dance and the movement of body, Rai became the music of weddings, of the streets, and of the youth. The improvised and performative nature of Rai also displays its affectivity. So what I mean here by affectivity is that through listening to Rai, one's internal moods, feelings, thoughts, and senses come to the surface. So this brings us to the idea of Rai and the self. So what does music bring out of us? Rai is spontaneous, it's truthful, like I mentioned. It's also improv, so it does not trap itself in time. Rai manages the space that internal struggle takes, how the expression of ordinary personal concerns, sexuality, identity, and self-expression manifests itself physically. So the force of spontaneity here with Rai is in the muscles, in the body, in action. So the immediate reaction to the music is body movement. And this is where I bring up Audre Lorde's idea of the erotic, where she discusses a deep sense of self that is being exposed and expressed. And Zerar also calls this the personal eros. So it is an assertion of the life force of women, of that creative energy empowered, the knowledge and use of which we are now reclaiming our language, our history, our dancing, our loving, our work, our lives. And Zerar also mentions this as the birth of an individual, and she talks about Rai as an erotic subculture that affirms individual freedom. So, let me that. There we go. So Rai constructs the concept of identity and locality in a post-colonial context, makes us question where we are and what we feel. Rai is also embedded in local traditions, musically through sound and instruments, and also culturally. Communal performance in this case is traditional. In all Rai performances, there is a repetitive use of certain aesthetics like body movements, clothing, decor, instruments, and even the setting that you see here in the photos is a very typical performance setting. So in Rai, there is movement of the body, like I mentioned, there's participation of the audience, and there are different members additional to just the singer that participate in the performance. All of this allows for all those involved in the music to find their own individuality in the performance. I'll show an example now of that. So this is Shehari Miti, one of her performances. I'm not sure if you can hear. I don't think so. Can
Yeah,
you?
no sound. No sound.
No, they can't.
No sound.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's a shame because it's the sound, but what I'm trying to show here is more the performance aspect of the music, how there's, you know, there's people sitting, clapping, there's obviously Shehari Miti is there with her drum, and then people around her, dancers who are dancing. And this is also supposed to make the person watching this video feel involved in the process of Rai, because it is a process of performance and participating in the music making through dance and movement of the body. Okay.
Sorry, when you share your screen, I think you need to click something to share sound too, right?
So I included this documentary here about these performances and these kind of gatherings of women around music. It's a place where parties take place. It's a place where women can be with other women. So that means that they can they can be away from the view of men. They can remove their veils and they can dance and they can enjoy themselves. because since in Algeria, most women traditionally are not allowed to mix with men, it is gender segregated. So I included this documentary here just to mention medahats. So medahats are female orchestras. So they're comprised of just women. And they are women musicians who perform for other women. But like I said before, performance in Rai is participatory. So you have like there's no dichotomy between the audience and the performer. It's just everyone together, which is why I called it parties and gatherings, additional to just the performance aspect. So now for our second, I talked about Shahar Miti. This is Rabia. She's one of them, began her career singing in a female orchestra at the age of 11. She's an artist I personally admire because of her long since 1955 and is still active to this day. She currently owns a Rai bar in Paris. So she is a diaspora artist as well. So her discography displays the genre as an art form that has exceeded its temporal and geographical boundaries and has adapted to new musical trends. She shows Rai and its ability to blend the traditional with the modern, the rural and urban styles, constantly evolving but never giving up its true essence. So here I also included some cover art of her albums and her songs, as well as photos of her, so you can get a sense of also the personality of these artists. They describe themselves as like divas, as queens, as sheikha is a title of you know, it signifies a certain level of respect. So yes, this is kind of the visuals that I wanted to show. And then we have Shiba Zahwania, who is another artist, another one of my personal favorites. The reason I included her cover art here is because I believe covers in themselves can reveal knowledge on music and can reveal, you know, things behind music, the culture, the visual culture that accompanies music is as important as the music itself. Visuals display the ways in which music is being turned into a cultural product to be consumed. So Rai also evolved through considerable experimentation since the start of the 1970s and the introduction of electric instruments like the electric keyboard and the electric guitar. And this led to the creation of genres such as pop Rai, electro Rai, Rai and B, and many more. And Zaya is one of those many Algerian Rai artists who contributed to this evolution of Rai. She actually began her career in parallel with the cassette revolution. So this is a time in the 70s where cassettes became a widely diffused form of media. It was mass produced, it was easy to travel, it was an analog medium of music that was very accessible. So this time represented the golden era of Rai. There was a relative political calm in the 1970s and the 1980s. There's an increased merging of regional musical styles with more global ones. In fact, Rai music began to reflect the globalized nature of the music industry, adopting characteristics of reggae, of hip hop, and of funk genres. So you see here that even in the Algerian diaspora communities and the broader music market, they took interest in these artists that were coming out of Algeria and you know, started to consume them in diaspora. And this explains further the phenomenon that I mentioned earlier on the travel of Rai in the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, where singers were restricted in Algeria because of war, but the genre was exported and continued to thrive abroad. I don't think the music will work, but I will show it anyways, just for you guys to get a sense of, see, there is the use here of electric keyboards and of the electric guitars. and the microphones and everything. Yes. And then finally, I have the last Algerian Rai woman musician that I mentioned today is Sheba Fadela. So she is just like the other artists that I mentioned, like Sheba Zahwania. Her discography shows that Rai is in fusion with other genres, and specifically, she's in fusion with disco. So she uses disco beats to reclaim the body. She shows that dance is a liberatory way to move and reconfigure the body, and it's also historically a way for formerly colonized people to express and release their subjective embodied experiences. So Fadera's disco tempoed Rai style makes her gain immense popularity in North America specifically, where she is one of the only Rai women artists to have performed in the United States. So we see that Rai, the music, the ways in which it traveled through space and time, the visual art of CD, vinyl, and cassette covers, and the aesthetics of Rai performance all serve as an extensive space for knowledge production, and specifically in this case, a feminist one. So we can really understand what was really going on behind the scenes in Algeria through the filter of Rai music as its most visible cultural product. And I have included here some more Algerian Rai women musicians. There's obviously a lot more, but these are the names that I could get. There's also something to be said about the fact that from cassettes and vinyls, a lot of that music is not digitized, so we don't have access to them as easily as music that comes out now in the present. But yes, I wanted to include this list, and that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was really, really wonderful. Please go ahead and put your questions for her in the Q&A box, and we'll address it after the last presenter. The next presenters will be speaking for 20 minutes, and then after that, we will have our Q&A. So we will have doctors. I'm just going to call all of you doctors so I don't make mistakes. If you're not, you can just, let the audience know. We'll be hearing from Doctors Olusumbo Omolare Loko and Omotalani Ebenezer Ebo on Tradi Gospel Ironicity, conceptualizing the narrative of women and cultural sustainability through Christian music. Please take it away. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I am Omotolani Ebenezer Eko. I'm representing myself and Dr. Mrs. Loku Omolara, and I want to say I'm happy to be part of this panel, and I want to apologize for joining a bit late. It's due to technical issues. I'm sorry about that. Then I would like to give a little introduction of myself and my co-author. I specialize in music theory and composition with focus on research into endangered music practices, basically within the Jukun community. While Dr. Molara is our work focuses on gospel music, so we came together to collaborate on this research. The topic, as we have heard earlier on, is Tradi Gospel Ironicity, conceptualizing the narrative of women and cultural sustainability through Christian music. I would like to share my screen. It's just a little.
Please remember to click on the thing about sound so we can hear the sound, okay?
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
All right, thank you. Let me go to the beginning. I would like to just all right, sorry for the little delay. We're working on the conceptualizing the narrative of women cultural sustainability through Christian music. And when we say tragic gospel ironicity, we're trying to look at the contradicting relationship between the two religions and culture. The tradition has to do with the traditional Jukun culture, while the gospel is about Christianity, Western culture, and the influence on the traditional music. We have a focus, the light is on Anatu Japhet Gani, a gospel musician from the Jukun culture. So most of our discussion practically rallies around her. We relate our engagement with the traditional music, idioms, and elements in presenting our gospel music and passing across the message of Christ. So here is the outline of the study. An introduction, literature review, theoretical framework that informed the study, the methodology, the findings, and the discussion. Then I'll conclude. Also, on the introduction, I would like to let us know what we are doing. This study is based on the background knowledge of the advent of Christianity and its perception on African ritual music, idioms, and instrumentation, and its engagement in Christian music creation in Nigeria. Essential aim is conceptuality of women and cultural sustainability through Christian music, with an art music composition and performance, which is informed by a Jew cultural background. We investigate the impact of our adoption of traditional instruments and music creation in communicating the gospel of Jesus Christ musically, and its implication on the sustainability of Chukun traditional ritual songs and musical instruments. Borders around the opposing relationship between African indigenous religious practices, African traditional religious practices, and the functionality of African music, and the entirety of the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is aimed at destroying all the works of darkness, according to 1 John 3, verse 8. I will quote that. Let me quote it. It says, for the purpose of the Son of God was made, for this purpose, the Son of God was made manifested that he might destroy the works of the devil. So therefore, there arises this question that if the gospel of Jesus Christ tells of the essence of his manifestation as being ultimately aimed at destroying all the works of darkness, which in cause is unanimously considered synonymous with African traditional religious practices and rituals. When in the Christian circles, traditional proceedings, rituals, and all the lives, according to Christians, are considered works of darkness. So, how can this medium of this so-called work of darkness be used in propagating in propagating the destruction of the same religion of the same power, of the same whatever tradition or heritage? So that's what brought about this concept. However, I would like to digress. We would like to digress by saying several ongoing debates on the subjects of decolonization and sustainability of indigenous African musical cultures have consistently emphasized the need for African musicians to And when I say African musician, we're talking about both the arts composers and the popular music composers and performers to engage in authentic traditional musical idioms and elements in the composition and performances of their creative musical works. It could be through vocal or instrumentals or dance or combination of any of these musical mediums. So this African indigenous traditional music functionality includes game songs and folk songs, ceremonial songs, ritual songs, and various music styles peculiar to various traditional ensembles. Furthermore, this study interfaces with the reconciliation of the doctrine of Christian worship meant to pull down the named barbaric cultural practices and their engagement in preserving traditional musical culture. That's where the university now came to play. The religion or the Christian philosophy aimed at destroying the works of darkness or the so-called barbaric, the stigmatized traditional culture by the missionaries and by the Christian community. So what we're saying is that this study as a narrative of women and cultural sustainability through the same Christian music explores the intersection of gender, culture, faith within the context of Christian musical expression through the presentation of the understudied artist, that is Anatu Japhet Gani. There's a belief, excuse me please, our experience, our beliefs, our values, and now they are shaped as stage identity. Those are the things we look at, how this aspects of our life, our cultural background, our faith, our gender as a woman, and it's being put to play through our gospel music performances and generally informed our stage identity. Knowing fully well that Christian, like any other, is influenced by the cultural context in which it emerges. That this study explores the dynamic role gender plays in terms of expectations and representations portrayed in Christian music, taking consideration of how women narratives within this genre can challenge or reinforce traditional gender norms. So we also, through this study, examine the theme and messages embedded in Anatu Gani's gospel through textual and structural analysis to establish how our songs have contributed to the cultural sustainability by laying emphasis on the inclusivity and Kimbrough's Crenshaw's intersectional theory through the review of existing literatures. All women from different cultural backgrounds contribute to the richness and diversity of Christian musical expressions in Nigeria and globally. So the study bridges the historical and contemporary perspectives of the contrasting yet unified musical genres by tracing the historical development of Christian music and its impact on indigenous musical community and their cultural heritage, which currently is under researched. The methodology. Sorry. The methodology we engage, the study had the qualitative research method through interview, focus group discussion, and ethnographic observation in gathering data. Textual and structural, as I've said earlier, on textual and structural analysis of the musical examples was carried out on the lyrics and musical composition properties engaged by the musician to identify the themes, the patterns, and symbols that contribute to the conceptualization of women's narrative and cultural sustainability within the context of traditional gospel ironicity. So review of relevant literatures was also carried out to strengthen the arguments of the study. Theoretical framework explained. applying the theoretical framework of Kimbra, we engage with Kimbra Crenshaw's intersection that emphasizes the connectedness nature of various social categories such as gender, race, class, and sexuality, and how they intersect and interact to shape an individual's experience and identities. In the context of this study, intersectionality provides us with a lens through which to analyze the experience of an Japanese in relations to cultural sustainability and Christian music creation. So by adopting this theory as our framework, we are able to explain how various dimensions of identity intersect with our focused artist experience, and now she has been able to negotiate cultural sustainability through her engagement with Christian music, considering the unique challenges and opportunities she faces based on their intersecting identities. So what we are saying, excuse me, I would like to go to the findings and discussion because of my time. The first thing is that we look at the findings and the discussion. We looked at, these are the subtitles that we dealt with in the study: Anatu Japhet Ghani background and music engagement, traditional Jukun music and instrumental ensembles, ritual music in the Jukun community. We look into what the
I think she's, or is it just me? Can you hear her? Samuel, can you hear her?
No, I can't.
Okay, I think she's her internet is frozen.
I think so too.
Try to document the activities of the Jukun in terms of ritual music, then try.
She's in the matrix.
Oh, sorry, can you still hear me, please?
Yeah, your internet went out for a little bit. Do you want to share your screen again and maybe go back 1 minute back? Yeah. Yeah, she's frozen again.
Okay, I need to share my screen again.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
All right, let me just look at the instruments and used, and most of these instruments she engaged with are found associated with one a deity, one deity or the other. And looking at her background, her cultural background, as a young girl, during interview, she made us to know that she was engaged in singing, attending, and participating in this ritual processes in our community until she gave her life to Christ, until she became a Christian. And I want these pictures. Oh my God, are you seeing the pictures now?
We are now seeing your screen.
Please just give me a minute. Okay. Are you seeing it now?
No.
Are you seeing the screen now?
No, maybe you should
No,
just
no.
continue because you have like 4 minutes left.
All right. We have I have pictures that shows us our own performance and the traditional women performing during a ritual. In conclusion, the Jukun tribe of the northeastern region of Nigeria is one of the minority cultural communities that were more receptive to Christian worship than Islam, though with a strong commitment to the traditional worship and practices as a heritage. Today, cultural monuments, instruments, attires, and indigenous ideologies of the Jukun people are still available to the people and preserved for posterity. So musically, both contemporary and indigenous musicians actively employ the creative idioms and elements of the traditional Jukun musical culture. In the church, special preference is given to traditional or indigenous musical performances based on biblical and Christian religious texts, accompanied by traditional musical instruments, some of which have connections with certain deities, as I mentioned earlier. So this is meant to attract. So when we ask question and at the course of the discussion, the answer given is that this engagement of this traditional instrument was meant to attract indigenous people to the church as an evangelism strategy, believing that when they hear familiar sounds from familiar instruments, they are attracted to the church. So women folks are frontiers of this movement, with so much focus on Anatu Japhet Gani's gospel musical engagement. The study, by building its concepts of tradi-gospel ironicity on precious intersectional theory, argues about the conflicting interaction of the two cultures and religions through music creation and the women's role and narratives. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, and sorry about the internet. It's not your fault. So we're going to go into Q&A. We have a couple in the box already. So the first question is for Samuel. Thank you, Samuel, for your presentation. This is from Coyote. I would like you to try and move the discussion beyond media text engagement and strive to generate data from fieldwork, especially interviews from Shola Allison, to enable you tease out the philosophical bearings that inform the subject of gender and secularism, as well as assist in digging for deeper meanings. It may be interesting to include how the artist appropriates and or negotiates both spaces against Christian leaders' criticism. So this is the suggestion. Do you have like a brief, remarks about that?
Okay, thank you so much. I want to appreciate that suggestion, which in the previous abstract sent, I put it there that I'm interested in interviewing the Sholanisi herself. And the problem we have in Nigeria of getting the contact of artists, especially artists who are there making names and making waves for themselves. So, but I still have that at the back of my mind. I'm still trying to look for ways to get her and to interview her.
Thank you so much. You have another question from Oluwaseun. Thank you for a beautiful, interesting, and thought-provoking presentation. Sacred means anything connected with God or a good or dedication to a religious purpose and so deserving veneration. However, you said sacredness is individualistic, and so anything one does routinely could be termed sacred. How would you juxtapose your understanding of sacred with the conventional definition?
Okay. Well, I just picked that from Victor Stoner's explanation on ritual, which talks about a stereotype ritual, which talks about a stereotype sequence of activities involving gestures, words, objects performed in a sequestered place and designed to influence. Yes, when we look at the conventional meaning of sacredness and say God, the question now is, who is God or what is God? You understand? So I understand the supremeness aligned to sacredness. And that's why at the beginning, when I was talking about, and even if you look at the secularization theory that I borrowed, you discover that when it comes to sacredness, it's not just about religion. It's not just about theism. It's also about, that's why I had to use Turner's definition of ritual to support the sign that once you do something and then you are expecting an influence from it, or we are expecting to influence someone else, it can be a ritual. And looking at secularization theory that I borrowed from, it can also be sacred. That's why the individualistic aspect is coming to sacredness.
So there are follow-up questions. Have you looked at the term sacred from a Yoruba perspective, or are you looking at it through a Western prism? Olodumare is the name the Yoruba often call the supreme being God. I had you refer it to as secular. To whom is it secular? And again, this other one relates to the first question. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure I referred to Olodumare as being secular, but I'm going to look into that if because Olodumare is actually the supreme god in Yoruba, like he said. I agree with that too, and I didn't refer to him as secular, but probably maybe what he heard was the fact that I'm looking at how the two, both sacred and secular, how they are used together. I'm not trying to separate them in this work. I'm trying to look at how they are artistically coined together and they work side by side. Now, when you pick Shola and listen, for instance, the same Babala Numi Elodumare can both be used in the church, can also be used in the palace, in the king's palace. And when you're talking to Alafin or you're talking to Onyofife, you can say Babala Numi, depending on what the Onyofife has given you, or maybe your pocket is swollen already. You can see Baba laughing your Bife as Baba Lanumi. You can see him as your Lord, Oluwami, because Oluwami can be used for your husband too as a woman. So so maybe that's what he's thinking along this line. But Olodumare, yes, is used for God, but looking at that juxtaposition of sacred and secular and sacred, and how they infuse into one another. And don't forget, I'm using Shola and Lindsay as the agency here. It's not just German. So that's why I used why I use the word Olodumare, or why he thinks I use the word Olodumare for both secular and sacred. But I'll look into it very well so that I don't mislead people.
Yeah, so Oluwaseun is saying that because the Celestial Church of Christ, where Alison is a member, believes in the Yoruba worldview of sacredness rather than the Western worldview. And Olusegun thinks that would have had a great influence on her understanding of what sacred means. And so if Alison's understanding of sacred and secular is based on her lived experiences, which is based off of the CCC viewpoint, and is majorly based on Yoruba worldview, then it would be difficult to distinguish sacred from secular in her music, as the two may mean the same thing. So
yeah, that's my point already. Thank you for the
Thank you. We have another question from Ayo. Well done to all the presenters. Good work. My question is directed to Omotala. Your work, Tradi Religious, deals with acculturation of African musical medium in Western inherited worship mode. What is your take on acculturation in worship in your study? Please unmute.
On my take on acculturation, I didn't get the question well. Please, can you come back?
Yeah, your work, the work you're doing deals with, acculturation of African musical medium in Western inherited worship mode.
Yes.
What is your take on acculturation in worship in your studies? Yeah.
Okay. If I understand that question very well, I think it's kind of a fusion of both culture coming to play.
Yes.
So the artist now demonstrates a background, a cultural background, and our indigenous experiences, personal experiences, participation in all those cultural practices before she got converted, and now bringing in all this into the newfound faith. I don't know if I'm making sense. Bringing in where she's coming from, her background into play, trying to use that to project the new message she has. So the issue of acculturation now, I would say, comes to play in the fusion of the two. I don't know if I've done well.
Of course. I hope that, answers your question. Yeah. Thank you so much, Omotola. Does anyone have any other questions? I had one for Samuel, but it's related for what everybody's asking you. I just wanted to stress how important that Shola's voice is to your analysis. You really, I know it's hard to do ethnography in Nigeria, especially if you're a Nigerian institution, but maybe look for her videos where she spoke about these things, or just find a way to interview her, because her lived experiences, like Oluwaseun pointed out, is really important in understanding, gives insight to who she's referring when she mentions these generic, descriptions of God. Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question for Rachel. It's not like a question, but I'm really curious. On the last slide, the list that you provided, I saw like a lot of names, Cheka, like in the list of women. And I was like, oh, is this like a common name in this culture, or are they like family of musicians? I was just curious about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
no, Sheikha is for female Muslim singers. It's an Islamic term for, yeah, it's an Islamic title for someone who is usually older and who has like a certain level of knowledge, and in this case, like a musician of a certain rank.
Okay.
So that's why they're called Sheikha, and for men they're called Sheikh. So
okay.
yeah. And then the other word that's there's Sheikha and there's Sheba. Sheba means young woman. So usually Sheikha would be like the older musicians, and then Sheba are the younger ones who like just started their careers. But then, the name sticks. So even if they're older, they still are called Sheba.
So is there like a significance? Why do you think they have to add that title even when they write their names? Is there like a cultural significance to that?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of the question?
So I'm curious, like, of course, when I write my name, of course, I'm not one of them or anything. I just write Ruth or Para. So what is the cultural significance of adding those titles even when you write their names? Is there like any?
Well, I guess it designates them as musicians, as singers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like if professor or doctor or like it's like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. I thought it was like a first name that's popular. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? We still have like we have some time. We're supposed to stop at 9.
I see Samuel wrote something in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh. Question for Rachel. Wonderful presentation. Did you want to speak? Do you want to talk to Rachel? Just ask the question yourself, Samuel.
Okay, so yes. So he asked
oh, I told
used 3 women artists.
Sorry, I want him to ask you, like he's on the panel.
Okay, okay, let me just ask. You know, I was looking at those album arts and they look so beautiful, and especially like the collection of those album arts. And I was thinking that they could also aesthetically be saying something, because when you look at African aesthetic, different scholars have looked at African aesthetic as not just on the outside, but also what the function they are performing. So I don't know whether you consider those, because if you look at the way you use those album arts, maybe you consider the function of those album arts, how they help, okay, the visual artist or the graphic artist, and the function, what they are saying to the society. You know, that's my concern about the album arts used.
Yes, okay. So definitely, like you said, it's very colorful. I'm glad that you noticed like the art behind it, because every time I see these covers, I always am amazed by like the colors and the efforts that were put into like the photography and then like just the visuals and yeah, the fonts used, it's always different. Like you never see a cover art that is similar to something else. Obviously, you see patterns. Like there's always like the artist's name. There's always a picture of the artist. And it's always like kind of sometimes a random picture, like even candid pictures. And they're always so different. And I think that kind of speaks to like the multiplicity of artists that there are in Harai, first of all. It also speaks to kind of, I would say Harai is kind of a messy genre of music, not just in like the sounds and the different subgenres and how like multiple it is, but also like in the art itself and in the songs that are created. There's just so much in quantity. So I feel like the visual art kind of portrays that. In terms of colors, again, like this is during a time of like the 70s and the 80s. There's the cassette revolution, and I think this is all over Africa. This is like a time where music is being produced in mass. People are consuming music. There's the radio that's becoming there's nightclubs as well. This is a time where music, people want to consume it, and so people want to produce it so that they can start making money. There's like obviously like a capitalistic layer to it too. And I think that's why there's so much like multitude in the visuals as well, is so that you're not creating the same thing, you're always creating something different. Yeah, I think that kind of shows like the aesthetics of Rai. And also, like I said earlier in my presentation, these artists are kind of presenting themselves like with a certain personality of like being a diva or being very like, Rai is about like showing off yourself and showing off your individuality. So I think the aesthetics also portray that. They portray like kind of, you can also see trends in specific artists, like how they like to make their art. Yeah, like Zahonia, for example, like she's always smiling and she always has like a cute face on and she has her glasses. Like it also, they try to show their own personalities through the art, which is what I noticed. And you can see it's not just women, it's also men. Like it's something that's like genderless, which I find very interesting. It shows that like in Hrai, like all the aesthetics and the patterns that you see are not just unique to women or to men, like they all do it. It kind of shows like the binary of gender doesn't really exist as much as like we would think. Yeah, that's my answer. I hope that answers.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was really good. question and answer. Do we have more questions? We still have like 11 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to try and buttress my answer to the different question. For instance, um I know that I need to interview this artist to know her view about the generic names she's using, whether they are deliberate or of recent. For instance, she started using a little once in a while, maybe 1 out of 10. She'll mention Jesus in her songs, and then but all together, if you look at Sholani in performing live, because the spaces also matters. If you see her performing live in churches, you would think, yes, this is a core gospel musician or this is a core church musician. But the question of meaning making too, it's important too, because the question of what is gospel song? Is it that once Jesus is added to it, it doesn't make it gospel song? That's also another concern. Or who is the artist behind the song? Does that make it a gospel song too? Is there? But one of the argument I'm having here is that no matter the appellation, no matter the labeling, Sholanisi should not try to, because I think one of the reasons why most these artists sometimes avoid academics from interviewing them is because they are afraid we're going to label them this, label them that, because they think we are going to voice the society, because the society has been asking questions of who is Sholani Singh? Can we call her a gospel musician? Can we call her a church musician? But I'm saying that Sholani Singh can be presented as an agent of gendering both the sacred and the secular space, and just see her as a woman, as a musician, as a woman who is singing, and in our song, whether the composition or the performance, is adding to the institution, both in the sacred spaces and the sacred space and the secular space, and not try to differentiate and say at this point, is this what she is or is this what she is? And then at the end of the day, whether in the church, she belongs to the church, and outside too, they're looking at her that you're a church musician, you don't belong here. And the church also looking at her as if you don't belong here too, because of one usage of word or another generic term that she's using to qualify God, qualify everybody. So I know it's important for me to get to her, but at the same time, too, as a scholar, we have all these theories, all these concepts are thrown at us that we can use to also explain her. And then probably maybe by the time I give her like maybe a glimpse of my work and say, look, I'm not trying to join the debate. I'm not trying to give a bad appellation. I just want to look at your work, how it's been able to gender popular culture and popular musician in Nigeria. Thank you.
I mean, and I agree with you because what about musicians who are no longer alive? Are we not gonna write, about them because they are not alive? But I also understand what they were asking you. There are some arguments you make about people, and it will actually be nice for you to say, okay, this is these are my thoughts, right? Based on what I'm seeing. If you make it explicitly like that, especially from your methodology, and just make it clear, where how you're getting your evidence and how you're doing analysis, just like, oh, this is my voice, these are my limitations. And again, like you said, part of being an ethnographer, I don't know if you're in ethnomusicology, is also to be able to learn how to convince people and make the artist trust you. You just said something, oh, why these artists don't want us to, that's not always the case, because you got to build the trust. That's what you do when you go for ethnographic research, right? You have to make them understand that you're going to represent them well, that you're not going to do those things that you say that they accuse scholars of doing. That's your job, right? And then when you do it, even if you have something to say, like if the reader reads it and you say, this is my voice, but this is what she said, but this is how I'm seeing it, everybody understands that you're representing the person well, and also, making this critical argument, because you have to say what you have to say as a scholar. But we need to know that, right? You can making some claims without like actually telling us these are my claims, based on this. That's why you're getting those questions. I don't know if I'm making sense, right? I don't know if I'm making sense, but you're doing a great job. Yeah, thank you so much.
Definitely. I'm definitely. I'm from the ethnomusicology. I'm trained as an ethnomusicology, so and I'm still undergoing training in ethnomusicology, and I understand everything, and that's why I said I propose that I'm going to interview Sholani, and I'll still try my best to get her. I think I'm getting messages coming in that look, you can get her through this means and that means and I'm happy for this conversation. It's really helped my work and helped me to see how I can come in and then also and I love what you said about the fact that if I can make it clear from the beginning, this is my voice, this is our voice, this is the society voice also. It's important to actually find a connection between the three and not just impose my word and say, hey, this is I understand. Thank you so much. I love it.
Absolutely, but you're a great scholar. You're gonna do great. I think you're doing a great work. We still have 5 minutes for final any finals. And Rachel, do you have final words?
Yes, can I? Yeah. I mean, I hope like in my research and presentation, I can, offer methods that can be used elsewhere. I like the study of visual culture when we're looking at music. Um, it reveals like a whole extra branch of the music, or when we look at like performance videos, or when we're looking at the specifics of performance videos, like the aesthetics that are used, and even the dance moves, that can reveal knowledge about the music itself. And I think like this is something that I use as a method in for the study of Rai, but I think we can use this in different genres, in different contexts, and to study like how music goes against kind of very standard patterns that are more that are used more in like European or North American musical genres or contexts. I feel like in the African context, we're just using a lot more to create music, and there's like I said in my presentation, the deep sense of self is coming in. And when I talk about dance's release, for example, this is a concept that Frantz Fanon brought up when he, in The Wretched of the Earth, when he talks about Algerians who come together during like French colonization and in rural areas, and they use music to like release emotions and release frustrations that they have like trapped in their bodies from like over a century of colonization. Like these are concepts that like I hope that we can use throughout our study of music in Africa. Yeah, that's just final thoughts.
Yeah, that's really great. Write it down for us. We like articles, right? Propose these theories, and I'll be happy to read it and use that. Thank you so much, Rachel. We have 2 minutes. Omotala, do you have like a final word or words? Please unmute.
I want to say a big thank you to everyone.
Yeah, her internet. Yeah. Sorry, I can hear her. Can you hear her?
It's really bad that hello. I'm really sorry about all the connectivity issues.
Not
And
your
I
fault.
want to.
Yeah, it's not really your fault. I think we should wrap up because the next session is going to use the same Zoom link and we don't hear her. Thank you, everyone. It's really nice to meet you. I hope to meet you somewhere.
To say that I will network. I'm sorry about that. And I enjoyed the little I could get from this. And I really like to connect with members of the panel and know more about what they are doing and express myself to, and have a kind of in-depth discussion on what we are doing individually and how we can collaborate.
Absolutely. Our emails, our emails are all in the
Thank
program,
you.
right? Thank you. Our emails are all in the program, so we can, connect that way. Thank you, everyone, and have a good
Thank
conference.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.